Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Guru Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for joining in an ongoing discussion of the Srimad Bhagavatam. We will be resuming our discussion from the first canto, chapter 15. The title of the chapter is The Pandavas Retire Timely. So we'll start with our Mangalacharan prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Udirayet Ashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavatir Naishtiki Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunnavadi Paschachadi Shitarane. So last week we had completed a discussion on the 14th chapter, first canto of the Bhagavatam, which was a compilation of the various questions that are asked by Maharaj Yudhishthir to Arjun. So before that, in the 13th chapter, Maharaj Yudhishthir, he had noted many inauspicious occurrences around him. And while he was having this conversation with his younger brother Bhimsen, Arjuna comes, and Yudhishthira notices that Arjun is dejected, his body is lacking its luster. So he asks him different kinds of questions. He asks him on the welfare of the Yaduvamshis. Then he asks him about the cause of his own despair. And finally, he makes a conclusion that is it because Krishna has left the planet. So we had noted that Maharaj Yudhishthira had asked 10 questions or 10 inquiries to Arjun, and they were all in a way pointing to, by asking what was the cause of his dejection, he was also inquiring, he was also stating that what is the cause of somebody's happiness. So if you take it in the opposite way, that becomes the cause of happiness. So for instance, he said that were you not able to protect somebody who came and asked you for shelter? Did you eat food without first checking if there was somebody hungry? Were you not able to give in charity? Did you come in contact with a disreputable woman? So the flip side of this, of course, means that one who is able to give in charity, able to preserve one's morality, able to give protection, follow one's duty, would be situated in a position of happiness. Now, this is where the previous chapter had ended, and now we will continue with the 15th chapter. So the 15th chapter has 51 verses in it, and it begins with Arjun not really answering the question directly of Maharaj Yudhishthir, but he will talk about the various kinds of protection that he enjoyed in his relationship with Krishna. So and how he has lost that power. So the first 21 verses pretty much cover that. He will relate, almost it's like a mini Mahabharata, that he will relate the salient incidents in the Mahabharata, and it would appear that he is boasting because he talks about his astounding powers, but really speaking is glorifying Krishna. And then after that, he will start speaking about what has actually happened. So then he will from the 20th, 21st verse onwards, he will start talking about the destruction of the Yadu dynasty, the disappearance of Krishna and Balram. And the concluding part of the chapter is Yudhishthir's subsequent actions, which is then he makes up his mind to give up his kingdom. He establishes Maharaj Parikshit to the throne, and then he follows the path of renunciation that ends up in him giving up his body. So we'll begin from 115.1. Sutavacha evam Krishna sakha Krishno Bhratra Rajna Vikalpitaha Nana Shankashpadam Rupam Krishna Vishlesha Karshita. Sutta Goswami said, Arjun, the celebrated friend of Lord Krishna, was grief-stricken because of his strong feeling of separation from Krishna. Over and above all, Maharaj Yudhishthir's speculative inquiries. So, Sutta here, he said, Evam Krishna Sakha Krishna. So he's calling Arjun as Krishna. So one of Arjun's name was Krishna because he was dark complexioned, and Krishna means one who's dark complexioned. Draupadi was also called Krishna for the same reason, that she had a dark complexion. And then he says, Evam Krishna Sakaha Krishna, that he is also the friend of Krishna, the celebrated, Srila Prabhupada translates as the celebrated friend of Lord Krishna. So this is actually going to establish the context of what will be spoken in the subsequent verse. So the point that is being made over here is that regardless of the specifics of what is going to unfold, this should be kept in mind. Evam Krishna Sakha Krishna. That the person who is speaking is Krishna Sakha, is the celebrated friend of Krishna. And while Krishna can be also considered to be complexion, it also means that Arjun had greatness, just like Krishna had. Not at the same level, but comparable to. Many times we say that the devotees become glorious because of their association with the Lord. So Sutta Goswami is making these 2 points, that when you read the subsequent verses in this chapter, remember that the person who is speaking it is an intimate friend of Krishna, almost as great as Krishna. So the questions that are being asked by Maharaj Yudhishthir are referred to as Vikalpita, speculative, Nana Shanka Aspadam, based on many doubts. So that is the nature of a conversation that is based on uncertainty. That because he himself was not sure about what was happening, so his questions were also speculative. And we see that his questions are literally all over the map. He's asking about the Yadus, he's asking about Arjun, he's asking about Krishna. So the doubts that Maharaj Yudhishthira had are coming from three different sources. So they're coming from the inauspicious omens that Yudhishthira had witnessed and was experiencing. So we saw that in the last chapter, where Maharaj Yudhishthira he saw so many inauspiciousness that was happening, that how his left part of his body was twitching, and how nature was acting contrary to its own nature. The animals were acting in an inauspicious way. So that was one reason why he was asking all these questions. The second was based on the direct empirical observation of Arjun. So when he saw Arjun, he could discern that something was wrong. And the third source of his doubts was coming from the statement that was made by Narad Muni at the end of the 13th chapter, where he said that, where he indicated that the Yadus and Krishna may now have departed. So because of these three reasons, Maharaj Yudhishthira is in a vikalpita, that he is unable to understand what actually is happening, and that is why Nana Shankha Aspadam, and that is why many Nana means many, and Shankaspadam is uncertainties. Many uncertainties are coming. So what is the result of this? So the state of Arjun is summarized as Krishna Vishlesh Karshita. That because of the feelings of separation from Krishna. So even before Arjun had come in the presence of Yudhishthira and had a conversation with him, he already was aggrieved because of Krishna Vishlesh Karshita, because he was feeling this intense separation from Krishna. Now that is further aggravated by what one may think of as aspersions. So when you go to somebody's house, and the questions are asked in the context of expectations. So when you go to somebody's house and you're sad, and depending on what the other person think of you, they might ask you questions that are relevant. So if you go to a person's house and you're sad, it's unlikely the person will ask you that did you steal from somebody's house and were you caught? Did you commit a murder and now you're repenting it? So they're incongruent, right? They may ask you other questions that maybe you have a challenge at your job, or did you have a quarrel with your wife, or something like that. So Sutta is indicating that the questions of Yudhishthira that were speculative in nature added to the bereavement of Arjun because they were incongruent. Essentially, what Maharaj Yudhishthira was asking him was that, have you been able to execute your Kshatriya Dharma? Have you been able to execute your Grahastha Dharma? So essentially, he is saying that not executing it is sinful. That have you been committing sinful activities? The acharyas say that at a deeper level, Arjun is getting even more agitated by the questions of Yudhishthira, because even though he will not answer these questions, but they're true. So when he says that were you not able to protect somebody who took shelter of you, Arjun in his mind knows yes. When he says that were you not able to keep a vow that you gave to somebody, Arjun in his mind knows yes. He had promised Krishna that he will take care of his wives, and he was not able to keep that vow. Were you defeated by an inferior person? Yes. He was a Kshatriya. He was an Atirathi. And some tribal men who were completely unskilled in the art of bearing weapons had defeated him. So that was further adding to his to his state of agony. So Srila Prabhupada in his lectures, he refers to this verse once in a while, not often. But in one of the lectures, he says, Evam Krishna Sakha Krishna, and he talks about Arjun's special relationship with Krishna. So he says Arjun's bodily features were almost similar to Krishna's bodily features. And he was morose because of being separated from Krishna. And then Prabhupada in the lecture, he extends it to us. That is our situation also, that we are all seeking happiness. So he says, I'm expanding a little bit, but he says that one seeks something when they lack it. If you have wealth and you're satisfied, you will not seek wealth. Only if you aspire for more wealth, or if you lack wealth, then you seek it. So the reason that everybody in the material world is engaged in the eternal pursuit of happiness is because they lack happiness. And then he says, just like Arjun was morose because he was separated from Krishna, the Jiva is also morose for the same reason. But the difference is that Arjun knew the cause of his unhappiness, and we don't. Arjun, by knowing the cause of his unhappiness, was also able to remediate it. And since we do not know the cause of our unhappiness, we are still looking for the right thing in the wrong places. Next verse, 115 to Shokena shushudvadana rat saroj hata prabha vibhum tam eva nusmaran nashaknot pratibhasitum. Due to grief, Arjun's mouth and lotus-like heart had dried up. Therefore, his body lost all luster. Now, remembering the Supreme Lord, he could hardly utter a word in reply. So, this verse talks about both the external and the internal state of Arjun. So, what was the external state? Shushiyad Vadana, that his mouth had dried up, and Rita Saroja, and his heart had dried up, and Hathaprabha, that his body had lost all luster. So the point made over here is that one's body's luster is not really a state of one's health, because even ascetics, they may look very emaciated. They may be just skin and bones, but you'll see that their body is glowing with luster. So it's not a state of health, it's the state of the dominant mode of material nature that is prevailing. So in Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 14, verse 11, Krishna says that the manifestation of the mode of goodness is illumination. Now there he's speaking illumination by knowledge, which is speaking from a more metaphorical perspective. But the mode of goodness is also illuminating in a more perceivable way. And all of us may have experienced this in our own lives, that when we see somebody who's very strongly Brahmanical, then we can see that at least on the face, if not the body, we can see that the face is glowing with effulgence. Even though our eyes may not be that discerning, but still, we can, especially if you go to holy places, and there if you're fortunate to come across somebody who is very strongly anchored in their bhakti, you can see how their face and body is effulgent. Now, Arjun's loss of body luster is not because of Arjun losing his bhakti, or because Arjun is falling into the lower modes, but this is more what is considered to be temporary eclipsing. That because of intense sorrow, his inherent modes are being temporarily eclipsed. So we also see that in Dwarka, when the news of Krishna's disappearance came, then um, uh, the behavior of the residents of Dwarka was very much in the mode of ignorance. So the wives of Krishna, they started rolling on the grounds, they were beating their chest, they were pulling their hair. Um, Krishna's father is Maharaj Ugrasen. Uh, they they all um, lost their consciousness. Vasudev actually, he when he heard of Krishna's passing away, he lost his consciousness and he never recovered from it. He actually died. That very night he died. So this is just a case of where, because of intense affection, suddenly the modes get eclipsed. And that's what is happening in Arjun's case, that he's dejected, his uh, uh, the external symptoms are being mentioned to talk about that his mouth had dried up and his heart had dried up. So one can understand that the grief that he was experiencing was significant. So Sutta then describes the internal state of Arjun. He says, Eva anusmaran, certainly meditating, tam vibhum, unto Krishna. So this is talking about the position of a devotee that is not affected by Vapu. So even though Krishna's absence is impacting Arjun, but his meditation is still there on Krishna. Later on, we will see that happen more specifically, where Arjun, he will meditate on the Bhagavad Gita. He will meditate on the instructions given by Krishna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and he will compose himself. But here also we see that even though Arjun is aware that Krishna is gone, there, anusmaran. Anusmaran means, so smaran means to remember. Anu means that which follows closely. So one understanding of anusmaran is that he was constantly meditating. So what follows intense meditation is constant meditation. It also refers to, if you remember back to when we were discussing the rasas, it also can refer to the anubhav of smaran. So the smaran, so the separation of Krishna is the vibhav, and the anubhav of it is a heightened state of affection. And we will again see this in subsequent verses, where Arjun is actually now feeling much more attracted to Krishna, even when Krishna is, or because Krishna is not there. So by nature, Arjun was accustomed to meditating on his friend Krishna, and the separation of Krishna now intensified it to anusmaran. So both the meanings are appropriate. Anusmaran means intensified to constant meditation. Earlier on, he might think of Krishna sporadically, regularly but sporadically, but now it was intensified to constant meditation, that he could not think of anybody else. And also it resulted in a heightened state of affection in Krishna. So Sutta says eva anusmaran. So eva means certainly. Of that there was no doubt. So again he's making this point to establish the context of the relationship between Arjun and Krishna. That Krishna had Arjun as a special friend. Krishna had Arjun as a devotee. And Arjun, as a friend and a devotee, was closely associated with Krishna, either in Vapu, either when they were together or when they were not together, in Anusmaran and constant meditation. Okay, verse 3. Krichrena samstabhya sucha paninam ryanetrayo prakoshena samunnada rnya kataraha. With great difficulty, he checked the tears of grief that smeared his eyes. He was very distressed because Lord Krishna was out of his sight, and he increasingly felt affection for him. So the Anusmaran that we were talking about in the previous verse is explicitly called out over here, that because of this separation, he was feeling intense affection for Krishna increasingly. So that is the nature of the rasa, that it feeds upon itself. That because of the separation, he felt affection. Because of the affection, he meditated more on Krishna. And because of that, he felt even more affection. So this mood is very simple, is very similar to what is known as Vipralamba. It is actually a subcategory of Vipralamba that is called Pravas Vipralamba. So Vipralamba is of three kinds, and we won't go into, or rather four kinds, but Pravas is basically feeling of separation after meeting. So that was the situation of Arjun, that he had lifelong association with Krishna. Now he lost that association. So that is called Pravas. And because of that separation, his meditation is intensified. So that is Vipralamba. Now, really speaking, Vipralamba is used in the context of Madhurya Bhav. So if you look at the definition of Vipralamba, then it is typically used to describe the relation between the lover and the loved one. So it is used in a used in a conjugal mood. And Arjun obviously did not have that kind of relationship, but one can understand that this is an extreme case where the impetus is so strong that there is reflection of other higher rasas. So Vipralamba rasa is one of the highest rasa that can be experienced. And under this intense impetus of Arjun just having experiencing separation from Krishna, he's experiencing something that is a reflection of it. It's not that Arjun's rasa changed. Arjun rasa was always Sakhya, but even in Sakhya ras, there is this reflection of Vipralamba Bhava. That is association in separation, minus the Shringar ras, minus the conjugal aspect of it. Okay. 115.4. Sakhyam Maitrim Saurdam Cha Saritadishu Samsmaran Nirpam Agrajam Mityaha Baspa Gadgadaya Gira. Remembering Lord Krishna and his well-wishes, benefactions, intimate familiar relationships, and his chariot driving, Arjun, overwhelmed and breathing very heavily, began to speak. So, Sakhyam Maitram Swardamcha. So, Arjun at this point is meditating on the three mellows of relationship that are there between him and Krishna. So, he says Sakhyam. So, Sakhyam is friendship between peers. And that is the most prominent nature of the relationship, where it is between equals. So Arjun and Krishna in age were very close to one another. In relationship, they were brothers, cousins, and both of them in social standing were very similar. They were Kshatriyas and princes of great dynasties. So there was a very contemporary peer-to-peer relationship that defined how they related to one another. So Arjun remembers that Sakhyam with Krishna, but then he also thinks about, Arjun will speak more about this mood in verse 5 and 18 and 19, where he'll talk about his friendship with Krishna. But then he also acknowledges some other rasas that were maybe not sthayi, but they were they were they were they would circumstantially appear. So he talks about Maitram. So Maitrim is in Sanskrit considered to be Sakhya mixed with Dasya. So this is friendship, but friendship with somebody taking an inferior position. Now, this is Arjun remembering Krishna as a chariot driver. So as a chariot driver is Dasya, is essentially a person who takes instructions and who serves the master. but there is also camaraderie between the two. So he's thinking of Krishna as Maitra, with Sakhya mixed with Dasya, and Arjun is talking about it in the he says Sarathya Adishu. So Sarathya Adishu is that he became my chariot driver. So that is the reason this Maitrim mellow is being meditated upon by Arjun. And then Arjun is also meditating on Saurdam. So Saurdam is friendship, but with Vatsalyaras. So this is typically friendship with somebody who is either elder to you or with somebody who has a superior position to you. The superior position may be because of different reasons. Maybe the person is of a higher stature, higher caste, higher by relationship. So we see this Saurdam Bhav in Lord Balram, where he considers Krishna to be his friend, but he also considers his responsibility to protect Krishna, just like a father. So he keeps an eye out of Krishna, he chastises Krishna, he gets worried about Krishna when he's not there. So this is Arjun meditating on the parental mood of Krishna. So this is the mood of Krishna when he spoke the Bhagavad Gita as a guru. So guru is like a father. So Vatsalya, Sakhya with Vatsalya, the mood of Krishna when he protected him from the Brahmastra of Ashwatthama. So he was acting as the friend and a protector. So he will speak about this in 11 verses from 7 to 17. So Prabhupada in his purport says, he's speaking about Krishna, he was not only a well-wisher of Arjun, but actually a benefactor. And to make it still more perfect, the Lord tied him into a family relationship by arranging Subhadra's marriage with him. And above all, the Lord agreed to become a chariot driver of Arjun in order to protect his friend from warfare risks. And the Lord became actually happy when he established the Pandavas to rule over the world. Arjun remembered all these one after another, and thus he became overwhelmed with such thoughts. So Srila Prabhupada refers to these three moods, that Arjun is remembering of Krishna as a friend, as a benefactor, and as a relative. So as Subhadra's brother, he is Arjun's brother-in-law, and as the son of Devaki, he is Arjun's cousin. So then, as he said, above all, he agreed to become a chariot driver. This is in the Dasya, in the Dasya Bhav, the Maitreya Bhav. And then above all, he was protecting him from different warfare risks. So this is Krishna as Sardam. Okay, so next verse Arjun speaks. So it's a logical point. I'll take a break here and see if there's any questions or comments.
Prabhuji, you mentioned like Yudhishthira was asking questions based on the his Kshatriya conduct, Kshatriya Dharma and Grahastha Dharma. So those questions are congruent, right, Prabhuji? Like congruent meaning like appropriate questions to ask, right, Prabhuji? So yeah, but I think you mentioned incongruent. So I missed somewhere with my understanding.
So they were incongruent from the perspective of Arjun's stature. So Arjun was renowned. So like he says that, was there a time, were you not able to maintain your vow? And Arjun was renowned for keeping his vow. Or were you not able to give protection? And Arjun was famous for giving protection even to his enemies. So we had discussed that he had given protection to even Duryodhan when the Gandharvas had attacked. And he had given protection to Indra. He had given protection to Mayadana, even against the desire of Krishna. So Arjun was well established in that stature of being famous for his Kshatriya Dharma and for being well situated in his Grahastha Dharma. So in that sense, they were incongruent. So it's not that they were incongruent that Yudhishthira was asking him that did you not do your yagya or did you not perform austerities, because they would be incongruent in a different way. That would be a Brahmanical code of conduct.
Yeah. Yes, bro. So basically, the questions are generally incongruent in Arjuna's stature, but in this context, they became true. That is why Arjun became more morose, because what he is supposed to do, he is not able to. Right, true.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. If there are no other questions, we'll proceed to verse 5. Arjun vacha vanchitoham maharaja harina bandhurupena yena me apratam tejo deva vishmapanam mahat. Arjun said, O king, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari, who treated me exactly like an intimate friend, has left me alone. Thus my astounding power, which astonished even demigods, is no longer with me. So one thing interesting to note over here is that the first thing that Arjun is complaining about is the loss of his powers. To some extent, it reflects on Arjun's position as a Kshatriya, because for a Kshatriya, the most prized possession is his powers. So we would see that most of the rest of the chapter, Arjun is actually going to be meditating on these powers, how he astounded, how he bested great enemies. So as a Kshatriya, that's what his identity is. The wars that he has fought, the enemies that he has defeated. Now, that does not take away Arjun's position as a devotee. So two ways to understand this is that uh, Arjun is acting from uh, from a position that he has been given. So just like in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjun is acting from a position that has been given, so he becomes bewildered and he asks questions which Arjun as a pure devotee would not need to ask. So here again, Arjun has been given the position of a Kshatriya, the king, and a close friend of Krishna. So he's lamenting about the loss of his powers. As a devotee, one can also understand that there was no real reason for Arjun to lament, because Krishna is never away from his devotees. So one can understand this in that context. Because when one reads this verse, one may say that why isn't Arjun lamenting about Krishna going away? He's basically saying that my powers have gone. Right? So he's saying Krishna was my friend. When he was with me, I was powerful. Now he's gone. Look, all my powers are gone. So it appears to be presenting Arjun in a superficial light. But by these two aspects, we can understand. And Arjun is addressing Krishna as as Harina. So Harina means one who takes away. So Lord Hari is one of the famous incarnations of Krishna, who was known for taking away the miseries of the demigods that were afflicted by demons. So when Arjun is calling Krishna Hari, then he's also pointing to the fact that this is the Krishna who took away my miseries, and this is the Krishna who will continue to take away my my miseries. So his mood of a devotee is also manifesting over here by this name play on the name of Krishna. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, the lesson is therefore that no one should be puffed up for his powers borrowed from the Lord. The sane man should rather feel obliged to the Lord for such benefactions and must utilize such power for the service of the Lord. Such power can be withdrawn at any time by the Lord. So the best use of such power and opulence is to engage them in the service of the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada is commenting on Arjun's position over here, that Arjun had power. Now Arjun, of course, was not puffed up, but Srila Prabhupada is commenting on the fact that as a perfect devotee, whatever Krishna gave him, he used it in the service of Krishna. And now that Krishna took them away, he also accepted that the lamentation that Arjun is experiencing is not because of the loss of his powers, but because of the separation from Krishna. As a devotee, he realizes that Krishna will never be separated. But then again, there is this loss of personal association. So the devotees, it's just like when one devotee is associating with another and the other devotee goes away, then one may still think that our relationship is eternal, our association will continue. But the understanding again is that because there was this mellow of personal association that is now absent, so there is some amount of grieving that is there. So another example where Krishna took away the powers happens during the pastime of Lord Ram to Parshuram. That Parshuram had been empowered with the power to destroy. I think it was called Dushtadaman Shakti. So he is the empowered incarnation of Krishna. And when Lord Parshuram had performed that pastime, did what he did, then Krishna as Lord Ram, he took away that power. And of course, Parshuram accepted it and understood that now it was time for him to resume his Brahmanical responsibilities or his Brahmanical duties, and he went to perform meditation. Um, in a lecture on this, Bhurijan Prabhu, he mentions that that uh, when we think about Krishna as Hari, as one who takes away, then one should understand that Krishna empowers his devotees with two kinds of powers. So there is one kind of power which is a vibhuti, and a vibhuti is like what Parshuram had, which is Dushtadaman, or what Arjun had, which was valor. And Krishna can give that or take that away. So Bhujan Prabhu said, in a more contemporary sense, this is something uh, um, like one is able to manage a temple, one is able to distribute lots of books, one is able to do a lot of fundraising. So that is one kind of power that Krishna may give and Krishna may take. The other power that Krishna gives and does not take away is that of devotion. So regardless of the circumstances, when Krishna has bestowed bhakti on somebody, and bhakti is the sense of Krishna is my maintainer, Krishna is my protector, and I am Krishna's servant. So Krishna will not take that away. As even as Lord Hari, he will not take that away. In that context, Krishna is called Lord Hari because he takes away the obstacles to that mood. So when Krishna empowers one with bhakti, then as Hari, he will take away the contaminations, the obstacles to that mood. So as Hari, he may take away the vibhutis, which are material opulences, and as Hari, he may take away the obstacles to bhakti. But having bestowed bhakti, he will never take away that, the bhakti from his devotee. Next verse. Yasya kshanna viyogena loko hayapriya darshanaha ukthena rahito hayesha mritaka prochyate yata. I have just lost him, whose separation for a moment would render all the universes unfavorable and void, like bodies without life. So beginning from this verse in 8 verses, Arjun is going to expand on the phrase Tejo Deva Vishampana Mahat. That so this was the phrase that he used in the previous verse, that Tejo Vishampanam Mahat, that my astounding power that astonished even the demigods has been taken away by Krishna. So now he will talk about what is that astounding power that he is speaking about. And again, as we mentioned, because Arjuna is a Kshatriya, that is his primary meditation. And he's talking about he will talk about his chivalrous conduct. He will talk about his besting of enemies, his fighting of wars, which is very congruent to the mood of a Kshatriya. So he also mentions the point that he whose separation for a moment would render all the universes unfavorable and void, like bodies without life. So one way to understand it is that, and this is Arjuna in the mood of a devotee, that without Krishna there is no life. Without Krishna, all that is there is shunyatam jagat sarvam govindaha virahaneme. So that is Arjuna's mood as a devotee. Another way to understand this also is from a more literal perspective, that because Krishna is the super soul of the universe, when Krishna exists, the universes are actually void. They actually die when there is no super soul. So Prabhupada explains this in the purport. The Lord expands himself by innumerable parts and parcels as Swamsha and Vibhinamsha. Paramatma is the Swamsha part of the Lord, whereas Vibhinamsha part are the living beings. As the living being is the important factor in the material body, for without the living being, the material body has no value. Similarly, without Paramatma, the living being has no status quo. Similarly, Brahman or Paramatma has no locus standi without the Supreme Lord, Krishna. This is thoroughly explained in the Bhagavad Gita. They are all interlinked with one another or interdependent factors. Thus, in the ultimate issue, the Lord is the summum bonum and therefore the vital principle of everything. So Prabhupada is explaining that how the universe is empowered by the Paramatma. The Paramatma is based on Krishna. The jivas in themselves have no standing without Krishna, and because of that, in the absence of Krishna, the vital principle is lost. Okay, next verse, verse 7. Yad samshaya drupatageham upagatanam rajanam swayamvar mukhe smaradur madana tejortam khalo maya bihitas chamatsayah sajji krutena dhanus adhigata cha Krishna. Only by his merciful strength was I able to vanquish all the lusty princes assembled at the palace of King Drupad for the selection of the bridegroom. With my bow and arrow, I could pierce the fish target and thereby gain the hand of Draupadi. So we'll see this mood of Arjun, that while he is glorifying his own achievements, he is attributing it completely to Krishna. So, this particular, and Arjun goes in a rough chronological order. So the Swayamvar of Draupadi is the first time when Krishna and Arjun come together. Before that, they were aware of one another for obvious reasons, especially for Krishna. Krishna was aware of everything, and Arjun was aware of Krishna, but he had never met Krishna. At Draupadi's Swayamvar, Arjun was there as a participant, and Krishna and Balram were there as observers. Now, they didn't talk to one another at that time, so there was no conversation at the Swayamvar. Later on, there is a conversation, and factually speaking, Arjun had, without knowing that Krishna is there, without having any direct conversation with Krishna, he accomplishes this feat of piercing the eye of the fish while looking in the water. But here also he is saying that only by his merciful strength. So the point that he's making is that everything that I had in the past and in the present are completely because of Krishna's mercy. So it's not that when Krishna and Arjun became friends, then Krishna started bestowing his mercy on Arjun. But Arjun is actually being even more humble. He's saying that even in the past, anything that I did that was noteworthy was only by the mercy of Krishna. So, Srila Prabhupada, and for the sake of time, I won't go into it. So the next set of verses are all Mahabharata pastimes, and Mahabharata pastimes are such that you can keep speaking on and on about them, because one thing will lead to another, and they're intoxicating that way. So I won't speak about them. In all probability, all of you already know what the pastimes are. And Srila Prabhupada also, in most of the purports, he will briefly describe the relevant pastime. So again, would recommend that you read it. Okay, next verse 8. Yat sanidavaham yu khandvam agnayadam Indram cha samraganam tarasa vijitya labda sabha maya krit adbuddha shilpa maya digbyo aranpatayo balim advarete. Because he was near me, it was possible for me to conquer with great dexterity the powerful king of heaven, Indra, along with the demigods associated, along with his demigod associates, and thus enable the fire god to devastate the Khanda forest. And only by his grace was the demon named Maya saved from the blazing Khanda forest. And thus we could build our assembly house of wonderful architectural workmanship, where all the princes assembled during the performance of Rajasuya Yagya and paid you tributes. So this is you is pointing to Yudhishthir. So as I had mentioned, that Arjuna is moving in a rough chronological order. He first talked about the first interaction with Krishna, which was an indirect interaction during the Swayamvar of Draupadi. Now this is more direct, that actually Krishna and Arjuna were together on the same chariot. This is the first time that Krishna takes the position of being the chariot driver of Arjuna. And if you remember the past time that Agni Dev, he was trying to eat the Khanda forest because he was sick. He was sick because a particular king had performed so much yagya and poured so much ghee that he became sick with all the ghee. So he wanted to burn away the ghee, but the Khanda forest was protected by Indra because Indra's close friend Maya lived within the forest. So every time Agni would try to eat the forest, Indra would drop rain, and so he would fail. So then Agni went and he begged of Krishna and Arjuna. They promised him, and at that point Agni gives all this gifts. He gives the chariot, he gives the Gandhi bow, he gives the quiver with inexhaustible arrows. Krishna becomes the Sarathi, and uh, he stops the reign of Indra. He engages in direct battle with Indra, and he actually confounds Indra. And Indra withdraws, but Indra is actually very happy because he's actually fighting with his own son. So he's very happy to see how powerful his own son had become. Now the interesting thing here that Arjuna is saying is that by his grace was the demon Maya saved from the blazing forest. Now in the Mahabharata, the pastime is that Krishna was pursuing Maya to kill Mayadana. And Arjuna actually intervenes when Mayadana takes shelter of Arjuna. And Arjuna is actually willing to fight with Krishna because he says he has taken shelter of me. I cannot, this is my Kshatriya dharma. I cannot renege that. But the reason that he's not falsely giving credit to Krishna. He's saying that even that power that I had to give shelter to Maya, the power that I had to challenge Krishna was coming from Krishna himself. So he's speaking from a platform of deep realizations. So in our context, we can understand that, and we are not at the stature of Arjun, but if you are able to execute a little bit of bhakti, then we understand that bhakti is a benediction of Krishna. The little bit of devotional service that we can do, whether it is study of the scriptures or chanting of the holy name or associating with devotees, we should understand that this is essentially Krishna Kripa. So Prabhupada in the purport, he actually makes an even more interesting point, and this is again in the context of Mayadanav. Prabhupada says that devotees are therefore more merciful than the Lord. And in devotional service, the mercy of a devotee is more valuable than the mercy of the Lord. Both the fire and the Lord ceased from chasing the demon as soon as both of them saw that the demon was given shelter by such a devotee as Arjun. This demon felt obliged to Arjun and wanted to do him some service to show his gratefulness. But Arjun declined to accept anything from him in return. Lord Krishna, however, being pleased with Maya for his taking shelter of a devotee, asked him to render service unto King Yudhishthir by building a wonderful assembly house. The process is that by the grace of the devotee, the mercy of the Lord is obtained. And by the mercy of the Lord, a chance to serve the Lord's devotee is obtained. So Srila Prabhupada makes this interesting point that Arjun giving shelter to Mayadanav was actually a manifestation of the mercy of Krishna that is appearing through his devotee. So if you look at the last statement again, he says that by the grace of a devotee, the mercy of the Lord is obtained. So that is why when Arjun is making the statement that by the mercy of Krishna, Mayadana was saved, then he is actually making a factual statement, because it is only by the mercy of Lord that the grace of a devotee is obtained. Okay, we'll do the next verse, 115.9. Yatejasa nripashiro angrim maham makhartham aryo anujas tava gajayuta sattva virya tenartaha pramatnata makhaya bhupa yanmochitas tadanayam balimadvarete. Your respectable younger brother, who possesses the strength of 10,000 elephants, killed by his grace Jarasan, whose feet were worshipped by many kings. These kings had been bought for sacrifice by Jarasan's Mahabhairav Yagya, but they were thus released. Later they paid tribute to Your Majesty. And again, Your Majesty is Yudhishthir over here. So 2 points are made by Arjun. One is that the mercy of Krishna did not just limit itself to Arjun. He's saying that by his mercy only, Bhima was able to kill Jarasan. So Krishna was not just my well-wisher or benefactor. He was the well-wisher of Bhima. He was your well-wisher, because by the killing of Jarasan, your Rajasuya Yagi could be performed. So Arjun is at one point making this explicit statement that Krishna's mercy extended to not just me but everybody else. He is also making a more subtle statement that when Krishna's mercy is bestowed on a devotee, it automatically goes to those who are connected with the devotee. So many times we make this point that when one becomes a devotee, one's 14 generations get liberated. So those are all cases of the mercy of Krishna flowing through a devotee. Arjuna is not explicitly saying that because that's not his mood. He's not wanting to boast that, look, I was a great devotee of Krishna, because of me he was helping you out. But the acharyas understand that this is also one of the realizations that can be distilled. Arjun also makes this point that he calls Bhima one who had the strength of 10,000 elephants. But then he says that by the mercy of Krishna, he was able to kill Jarasandha. So one can understand that Bhima did not kill Jarasandha because he had the strength of 10,000 elephants. He killed Jarasandha because of the mercy of Krishna. So regardless of one's material opulence, one's strength, unless one gets the mercy of Krishna, then only will the endeavors be fruitful. If you look at it from the perspective of Jarasandha, Jarasandha was physically a match for Bhima. He was actually, according to some understandings, more powerful than Bhima because he could not be killed in a normal way. Bhima repeatedly, he bifurcated his body. Prabhupada talks about it in the purport. But Jarasandha his body would reunite again and again. Bhima did not have that potency. And in mace and in physical warfare, Jarasandha was evenly matched with Bhima. But the reason Jarasandha lost was because he did not have the mercy of Krishna. Okay, next verse 10. Patnyastvavadimak akalpa mahabhishek shilagistacharu kabaram kitva sabhayam sparshatam vikiryo padaya patitashru mukhya yastat striyo krita hatesh vimukha keshaha. It was he who loosened the hair of all the wives of the miscreants who dared open the cluster of your queen's hair, which had been nicely dressed and sanctified for the great Rajasuya sacrificial ceremony. At that time, she fell down at the feet of Lord Krishna with tears in her eyes. So this is the pastime of Draupadi's Chirharan, and this is described in Mahabharata in Shaba Parva, and the sub Parva is Shishupal Vad Parva in chapter 64. So this pastime is famous, everybody knows about it, that Krishna was not personally present there, yet we see that when Arjuna is describing this, he is describing it as if Krishna is personally present there. Because what does he say? He says that at that time, she fell down at the feet of Lord Krishna with tears in her eyes. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he interprets this slightly differently, and he said that this could also mean that the tears of Draupadi fell onto the feet of Krishna, as opposed to Draupadi falling at the feet of Krishna, because Krishna was not personally present. Now one can also say, how can the tears fall at the feet of Krishna? But there is some amount of symbolism over here. Another way to understand it also is that for the devotees, the physical presence of Krishna and his physical absence are inconsequential. So in Krama Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami, he well, before that, the point that is made over here is that the reason that Arjun is describing this incident as if Krishna was personally present there was because he was present in the heart of the devotees. When Draupadi prayed to Krishna, she prayed to him with the understanding that Krishna was actually present there, which is factual because Krishna was present as Paramatma. So Jiva Goswami in Kramasandarbha, he opines that this particular incident does not refer to the Chirharan of Draupadi, but reflects to a later incident that happened in the forest with Durvasha Muni. So, which is actually the next verse that comes, but that is Jiva Goswami's analysis. So, this particular incident of the Chirharan of Draupadi, it happens after the Rajasuya Yagya. So, if you recollect the sequence of events in Mahabharata, that once the Pandavas they established their kingdom in Khandaprastha, they established dominion, and to celebrate that, they performed the Rajasuya Yagya. So, as a part of preparing the sacrificial ceremony, Draupadi's hair were washed and scented, and later on, being the wife of the emperor, she also got the sanctified water of the yagya and sprinkled it on her hair. So that is why Arjun is describing her hair, that which had been nicely dressed and sanctified for the great Rajasuya sacrificial ceremony. Now, in the time that this incident actually happened, that was Draupadi was in a different situation at that time. That because she was at the time of her monthly cycle, so she was in isolation at the time, and as was customary for women in the Vedic time, that when they're at the time of the monthly cycle, they do not take a bath. They are in isolation. They are dressed in ekavastra. They are dressed in a single piece of cloth. In the Mahabharata, actually, there's some more details that when Duryodhana had sent his servant to fetch Draupadi, then Yudhishthira had secretly sent another servant with a message to Draupadi, conveying to her the intentions of Duryodhana. So what Yudhishthira had said was that so at the time of the monthly cycle, the women also expose the navel, and this is just something to indicate that they're at that time. So Yudhishthira had indicated that Draupadi should come to the court dressed in one cloth, exposing her navel with her hair open, with the idea that it would invoke the mercy of the elders who were there and would stop anything untoward happening to Draupadi. So when Arjun is talking about the hair of Draupadi, he's talking about it just before the incident had happened, which is the Rajasuya Yagya. He's not talking about it at that very precise moment. So eventually Draupadi was dragged into the court by her loosened hair by Dushasan. So the loosening of hair is also a symptom of widowhood. So when women are married, then it is customary for them to nicely oil their hair, braid them, decorate them, and this is again just a celebration of their love for their husband. And when if the wife becomes a widow, then she lives very simply and keeps her hair mostly open. These times things are different, where um, it's considered more a sign of beauty, but at that time it was more considered to be a sign of grieving. Or at another point, Prabhupada says that loose hair meant women with loose morals. So prostitutes kept their hair open. Um, like I said, now uh, things are a lot different. Okay, I'll do one more verse, and then after that I'll stop for any questions or comments. So this is verse 11. Yuno jugo pavanetya duranta krichara durvasha shori rachita dayut agrabhugyaha sakana shishtam upa yujyayatas trilokyam triptamamasta vinimagna sangaha. During our exile, Durvasha Muni, who eats with his 10,000 disciples, intrigued with our enemies to put you in dangerous trouble. At that time, he, Lord Krishna, simply by accepting the remnants of food, saved us. By his accepting food thus, the assembly of Munis, while bathing in the river, felt sumptuously fed, and all the three worlds were also satisfied. So again, this is a famous pastime in the Mahabharata, where Durvasha Muni once comes to the palace of the Kauravas, and Duryodhana serves him very, very nicely. So Durvasha Muni is one who is easily pleased and easily angered. So pleased, he asks Duryodhana to take a benediction. And Duryodhana very cleverly, he says that I would like you to also give the benefit of your association to my brothers who are living in the forest now. And he said it would be good for you to go at this particular time. So when the Pandavas were in the forest, then because they were famous Kshatriyas, many people would come to visit them. Specifically, a lot of Brahmins were in constant association. And then as their dharma, they were always obligated to feed the Brahmins. So Draupadi was always in anxiety that there wasn't enough food. And at that point, um, and this part is not clear, but in some cases it says that Yudhishthira performed austerities. Some cases it says Draupadi performed austerities. But the understanding is under Krishna's direction, they performed austerities. And then Suryadev gave them the Akshay Patra. So the Akshay Patra was basically a patra in which unlimited amount of food would appear. The only stipulation would be that the food would only be there until Draupadi herself ate. And after that, it would be done for the day. And the next day, same thing again. So Duryodhana directed Durvasha Muni to go at a time of the day when he knew that Draupadi would have already eaten. So there would be no food. And Durvasha Muni, he travels with his 10,000 disciples. So it would be the duty of Yudhishthira to feed them. So Arjun uses the word over here that that Durvasha intrigued with our enemies to put us in this dangerous trouble. And in a way, it could be understood that Durvasha understood what Duryodhana was asking him to do and why, and he still went ahead and did this. So he was a part of the intrigue. So why he did that? So why he did that was because he was obligated to Duryodhana. He had already given him the benediction. Other acharyas say that he did that to glorify Krishna and his devotees. So he knew that Krishna will protect his devotees. He knew that when this situation would happen, despite what it might seem, the devotees would still triumph, and thus it would be a glorification of Krishna and his devotees. So of course over here, then he makes the point that when Krishna appeared, that when Durvasha appeared, then Draupadi was in anxiety. She prayed to Krishna, and then Krishna, who was in Dwarka at the time, appeared before him. And when Krishna appeared, then he says, "I'm hungry, give me food." And Draupadi says that I'm already in anxiety. I have to feed Durvasha and his 10,000 disciples. Now you're also asking for food. There's no food in the house. Krishna says, "Are you sure there is no food?" He said, "Yes." And then Krishna says, "Show me." So at the bottom of the pot, there is a little bit of rice and spinach, and Krishna eats it. Krishna eats it because Krishna is the Paramatma. Then the Vashamuni and all his disciples are completely satiated. And Arjun says that actually everybody in the universe becomes satiated. And Prabhupada says that Durvasha Muni was very alert at this time because he knew that the consequences of trifling with Krishna's devotees is not very palatable. So he had already tried that with Amrish Maharaj, and then he had to run all over the universe for 1 year just to save his life. So he was very careful in dealing with the devotees. So when he realized that there was no way that he could honor any prasadam, so after taking the bath, he simply ran away with his disciples. He didn't even come to the cottage of Pandavas. So Prabhupada in the purport says, the incident proves that the Lord is the greatest mystic, and therefore he is known as Yogeshwara. Another instruction is that every householder must offer food to the Lord, and the result will be that everyone, even a company of guests numbering 10,000, will be satisfied because the Lord being satisfied. That is the way of devotional service. And then as devotees, we can relate to the second point more because prasadam is very key to our practicing of Krishna consciousness. And we know that when we go to another devotee's house and honor prasadam, it is a lot more satisfying than if you have to go somewhere else and to a house of a person who's not a devotee, and they may be preparing even more sumptuous prasadam, but somehow it does not give that satisfaction, does not give that sense of satiety. There's always something that seems to be missing, and that is because of and even when people who are not devotees, they come to the house, and if they're given Krishna prasadam, you can see from their reaction that they appreciate the food much more than what the taste of the food warrants, just because of this the subtle quality in Krishna prasadam that it is very satisfying. Okay, I'll stop over here, see if there's any comments or questions.
Just a comment, Prabhuji. Like as you are explaining and sharing these verses, like I was feeling like how much the Pandavas had gone through. They went so much, but still the way they conducted themselves in all these situations they were put under is really commendable and should.
And the interesting thing is that how Arjun, in the mood of a devotee, is never holding Krishna responsible for any of the trials and tribulations that he went through. He is holding Krishna accountable only or he's glorifying Krishna for the help that he got out of it. He's not saying that despite Krishna was there, we had to go to the forest. Despite Krishna was there, Draupadi was disrespected, and despite Krishna was there, we were put in anxiety with Durvasha Muni. But he's always seeing the glass as half full. So that also, as you're saying, that it demonstrates the mood of a devotee to see Krishna's hand in all adversity in a positive way.
Yes, Prabhu. We feel like they would have not gone through this much, but like you said, that is devotee. Like they accept it as.
Okay, anybody else?
One
Hare Krishna,
question.
Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances, God Sundar Das. Um, the Vipralamba Rasa that you were mentioning, Arjuna's Vipralamba Rasa, you mentioned as Pravas, Prabhu. You said it's one of the types of Vipralamba Rasa, but not in a conjugal love, but more of a Sakhya Rasa type. Um, I didn't understand. I was more of thinking Vipralamba Rasa, I was associating that with conjugal love, and how can it be part of Sakhya Rasa? If you can explain that a little bit, Prabhu.
So maybe I didn't explain clearly. So I didn't say that Prabhas is not in conjugal. I said Prabhas is a subcategory of Vipralamba, which denotes separation after meeting. And all the four subcategories of Vipralamba are they're basically described in conjunction with a conjugal relationship. That the lover meets the beloved, and after the meeting there is separation. There is another category that while they are present, there is separation, man. Then there is in anticipation. The point that I was making was that uh, um, even though Arjun was not in a conjugal mood, but the intense separation that he was feeling from Krishna was very similar to the Vipralamba bhav. So he's in Sakhya, and they're incongruent rasas. There can never be any commingling of Madhurya with Sakhya, but there is a symptomatic resonance that is going on. That in Vipralamba bhav, when the lovers separate, then there is intense feeling of separation. Arjun is now experiencing the same intense feeling of separation. The same intense feeling of separation Mother Yashoda would feel when Krishna would Krishna would leave in the Prabhat in the Prabhat Kshetra. The same feeling is experienced by Daruka also when he understands that Krishna is going to leave the planet, and Krishna actually he wants to sit with Krishna. Krishna says, "You go back to Dwarka," and Daruka, being his servant in Dasya Bhav, is very very attached to being with Krishna. But then he understands this is Krishna's desire, and he goes there feeling intense separation from them. So all these separations, they are in different rasas, but they are reflections of the Madhurya is the highest rasa. So that feeling of separation gets reflected in different way. So again, the point I'm making is that in terms of effect, that they are similar, not in terms of cause.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Many times we hear about Arjuna's devotion to Krishna, like compared to rest of the Pandavas, especially Nakul and Sahadev, and their devotion to Krishna, or other Pandavas, it was less described. Is it because Arjuna is in a superior position in terms of his depth of devotion towards Krishna? Is there any difference between Pandavas in their level of devotion to Krishna?
So I haven't ever. So you're saying that many times it's described that Arjun was superior than Nakul Sahadev. Where is it described that Arjun is superior?
Not superior. More pastimes is described, or Arjun's relation with Krishna is more described compared to rest of the Pandavas. Is it because he has more depth in relation, or it is because he's a prominent personality?
So he's definitely a prominent personality, right? Because Arjun's position is Nar Narayan. He's an eternal associate of Krishna. From a more materialistic perspective, he's the son of Indra. He's a great warrior. He's probably after Krishna, the hero of Mahabharata. So that way, he's a great personality that way. But uh, I haven't read anywhere, and I would not want to hazard a guess that Arjun was superior to Nakul Sahadev in his devotion or even in status. It's difficult for us to make those kind of comparisons. Probably not even advisable to make those kinds of comparisons. Okay, so if there are no more questions, we'll stop over here. I will resume next Monday. वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभयश्चेत् कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितनां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। शीला प्रभुपाद की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंद। हरि हरे कृष्ण। Thank you very much.